The Fisherman and His Soul. No more distractions. I'm going to use my book to cover up the chat, and then you can't distract me. So there. Every evening, I started before 45 minutes. Every evening the young fisherman went out upon the sea, and threw his nets into the water. When the wind blew from the land, he caught nothing, or but little at best, for it was a bitter and black-winged wind. Black-winged wind. That's not even a tongue twister. Why am I having a hard time saying it? When the wind blew from the land, he caught nothing, but little at best, for it was a bitter and black-winged wind, and rough waves rose up to meet it. But when the wind blew to the shore, the fish came in from the deep, and swam into the meshes of his nets, and he took them to the marketplace and sold them. Yeah, we know this is how fishing works. Every evening he went out upon the sea, and one evening the net was so heavy that hardly could he draw it into the boat. And he laughed and said to himself, "Fisherman, he should have a little bit of a touch of pirate in him, I think. Hello, I'm a fisherman, out at sea." And he laughed and said to himself, "Surely I've caught all the fish that swim, or snared some dull monster that'll be marvel to men, or something of horror that the great queen will desire." And then putting forth all his strength, he tugged at the coarse ropes until, like lines of blue enamel round a vase of bronze, the long veins rose up on his arms. He tugged at the thin ropes, and nearer came the circle of flat corks, and the net rose at last to the top of the water. But no fish was in it at all, nor any monster, or thing of horror, but only a little mermaid lying fast asleep. Ooh, cool, it's going to be a story about a mermaid. I bet she dies at the end, because it's Oscar Wilde. Wilde explaining how fishing works is the least weird thing about his books. Yeah, true. Oh, adventurer, my unicorns have run amok. I thought I was wrong for a bit, because noise. I like that if 69 is the noise number, then 169 is just a threesome where one guy's just watching. Spidey, cha-ching! Looks like I'm doing some commissions. That's right, get started on the Twitch. Started on the Twitch Tales. I've got the first $100 for you. I don't know how much it's going to be, because we've got so much work to do that it's impossible for you to give me an actual accurate quote at this stage. But you've got the first 100 coming for you. A little mermaid lying fast asleep. Her hair was a wet fleece of gold, and each separate hair as a thread of fine gold in a cup of glass. Her body was as white ivory, and her tail was of silver and pearl. Silver and pearl was her tail. Wait, what? Her tail was of silver and pearl. Silver and pearl was her tail, and the green weeds of sea coiled round it, and like seashells were her ears, and her lips were like sea coral. The cold waves dashed over her cold breasts, and the salt glistened upon her eyelids. So beautiful was she that when the young fisherman saw her he was filled with wonder, and he put out his hand and drew the net close to him, and leaning over the side he clasped her in his arms. And when he touched her, she gave a little cry like a startled seagull and awoke, and looked at him in terror with her mauve amethyst eyes, and struggled that she might escape. But he held her so tightly to him, and he would not suffer her to depart. That's creepy. I mean, already like grabbing her when she's asleep is not right, but then she wakes up and she actively struggles against him and he still grabs her. When she saw that she could in no way escape from him, she began to weep and said, "What's the mermaid's voice going to be?" I didn't know there was going to be a mermaid in this story. What do mermaids sound like? Like that. Maybe I should make a sound like. I was gonna make a spoiler for the bubble. Liverpool? Is she gonna be a Liverpool? Is she gonna be a Scouse mate? She's so beautiful. I'm a beautiful mermaid. I love it. Scouse mate. Yeah. Yeah, mate. You want a car stereo? Under the sea. Love it. I wanna be where the people are. walking around on their, what do they call them? Feet. Oh man. Thanks, Heztech. She's definitely a Scouse. I don't do Scouse, I forgot. It's not one of my go-to accents, I forgot about it. I'm trying to remember the rest of that song. You want thingamabobs? I got 20. Because now I'm picturing. So one of the one of the stereotypes of Scousers growing up is that they're all thieves and scumbags, and they'll steal things. They'll nick your car stereos, and they'll take your car. You can take your wheels off your car and shit. and so it really recontextualizes that scene of the Little Mermaid talking about all the stuff that she's got in her house. I got thingamabobs. I got doodads. I wish I could remember how the song goes. I can't sing it. I wanna be where the people are. Da 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 da. Something dancing. What do you call it again? What's that word again? Unbreakable. Oh, unbreakable. Thank you. Unbreakable. You broke me in a different way. Flipping your fin. You don't get too far. Wanna see him dancing. Walking around on the, what do you call it again? Oh yeah, street. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Oh, that's right. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun. Why is this so funny to me? It's so simple. It shouldn't be this funny. It's just a Scouser. I'm picturing him fishing and picking his net up. She comes all the way up. And he's like, oh my god, it's like in a moment his world is just shattered, because he's like, she's so not only is she so beautiful, but she, like, mermaids actually real. They actually exist. And then she opens her eyes and she's like, you want thingamabobs? I've got 20. And she starts to flog him some stolen goods. Ooh. Alright. Thank you for that, Heztech. I appreciate that almost more than the $80 that you donated me. Oh boy. I didn't expect to be broken over that. Oh Jesus. Okay. Scouse. Liverpoolian. So you know how I've mentioned before that I like to have like a phrase to get into a particular language? With Scouse it's, here mate, do you want a car stereo? Here mate, do you want a car stereo? Nicked it this morning. Nick. The C's and the K sounds are the most distinctive part about Scouse, because it's a sound rather than a hard sound. It becomes a fricative rather than a plosive. He held her tightly to him and would not suffer her to depart. Get it together, Robert. Come on. It's not that funny. It's just a Scouser. It's just, I don't know. It feels like I'm not the first person to make a Scouse mermaid, but it just feels that way because they just feel so distinctively different to me. Rob should read a Disney version of The Little Mermaid, like the actual what's his name, Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, but Disneyed version. Alright, here we go. It's not funny. Calm down. The directors are all getting mad at you. You're wasting time. Time is money. He held her tightly to him and would not suffer her to depart. When she saw that she shit, stop it, Robert. It's like 14 takes now. You're wasting everybody's time. They need to get home to their families. When she saw that she could in no way escape from him, she began to weep and said, I pray thee, let me go, for I'm the only daughter of a king, and my father's aged and alone. But the young fisherman answered, what the fuck did he sound like now? He was like Cornish, wasn't he? I will not let thee go, save thou makest me a promise. Too many gifable contents. Not the voices. Does it increase the chances of more people do it? It definitely does, yes. I want whatever Rob's on. Just life. You'll need to... Yeah, the pineapple juice has been spiked. That's it. Up where they sunbathe under the sun, looking at me, feeling all free, nicking your stuff. Oh, Jesus Christ. What would I give if I could live? Betcha on land they understand that they don't reprimand their daughters. I'll never be able to read this story on my own now. Alright, shush. Everybody's getting mad. You're wasting time. Catering needs to go. I pray thee let me go, for I'm the only daughter of a king, and my father's aged and alone. But the young fisherman answered, what the fuck's wrong with you? The young fisherman answered, I will not let thee go, save thou makest me a promise that whenever I call thee, thou wilt come and sing to me. For the fish delight to listen to the song of the sea folk, and so shall my nets be full. Wilt thou in very truth let me go, if I promise thee this? Cried the mermaid. In very truth I will let thee go, said the young fisherman. So she made him the promise he desired, and swore it by the oath of the sea folk, which is a thing. And he loosened his... We're still on the title page. This is the chapter start. This is a long story. In truth I will let thee go. So she made him a promise he desired, and swore it by the oath of the sea folk, and he loosened his arms around from about her, and she sank down into the water, trembling with a strange fear. Every evening the young fisherman went out upon the sea, and called to the mermaid, and she rose out of the water and sang to him. Round and round. What did she sing? How did it sound? His nets weren't full. He made a grave mistake. Round and round her swam the dolphins, and the wild gulls wheeled over her head. And she sang a marvellous song. What did she sing, guys? What was she singing? Skunk's missing all of this. Yeah, Oscar Wilde wrote, what the fuck's wrong with you? Ethisia, how's it going? She came up and sang, I like big butts and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. When a girl walks in with the itty bitty waist and round thing in your face, you get sprung. When they pull up tough because you noticed that butt was stuffed. Something and can't stop staring. Something she's wearing. Oh baby, I want to get with you and take your picture. And then the fisherman quickly reneged on his promise and said, No, you can go. You can go, actually. I'm fine. She sang a marvellous song. Baby got back. For she sang of the sea folk who drive their flocks from cave to cave and carry the little calves on their shoulders. She sang of the Tritons who have long green beards and hairy breasts and big round waists. My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun. She sang of the Tritons who have long green beards and hairy breasts and blow through twisted conches when the king passes by. She sang of the palace of the king, which is all of amber, with a roof of clear emerald and a pavement of bright pearl, and of the gardens of the sea where the great filigrane fans of coral wave all day long, and the fish dart about like silver birds, and the anemones cling to the rocks, and the pinks burgeon in the ribbed yellow sand. She sang of the big whales that come down from the North Seas and have sharp icicles hanging from their fins, of the sirens who tell of wonderful things that the merchants who have to stop their ears with wax lest they should hear them and leap into the water and be drowned. She sang of the sunken galleys with their tall masts and the frozen sailors clinging to the rigging, and the mackerel swimming in and out of open portholes. Of the little barnacles, this is not a single sentence, Oscar. Of the little barnacles who are great travellers and cling to the keels of the ships and go round and round and round. Of the little cuttlefish who live in the sides of the cliffs and stretch out their long black arms and can make night come when they will it. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 lines. 26 line sentence. Thank you for the follow, Dominus Kex. Appreciate that. Why is it not coming up? It normally pops up in the chat saying, you failed your stealth saving throw. And now we can tell that you're following me. She sang, it's a Saturday night. Is that Saturday night? It's alright for fighting. Is this really Rob? I've got no idea what's going on, but it's fun. It's almost a shame to leave. Just don't leave then. Maybe the lack of sleep's catching up with him on pineapple juice. No breakfast. It's a combination of lots of things. How much of that sentence was The Little Mermaid? Rob is back, I guess. I'm back. No time for silliness. We're reading a serious story about Little Mermaid. A little Scouse mermaid. The Little Mermaid. She sang of the Nautilus. So he's just finished this massive list about all the things she's singing, and then the next sentence starts with, she sang of, and he just starts to list more stuff. She sang of the Nautilus, who has a boat of her own that is carved out of an opal and steered with a silken sail. Of the happy mermen who play upon harps and can charm the great kraken to sleep. Of the little children who catch hold of the slippery porpoises and ride laughing upon their backs. Of the mermaids who lie in the white foam and hold out their arms to the mariners. And of the sea lions with their curved tusks and their sea horses with their floating manes. And, as she sang, all the tunny fish came in from the deep to listen to her. It seems pretty like she's betraying them, really. She's like, come and listen to me. Oh, and then get eaten by that dude. As she sang, all the tunny fish came in from the deep to listen to her, and the young fisherman threw his nets round them and caught them, and others he caught with a spear. And when his boat was well laden, the mermaid would sink down into the sea, smiling at him. Yes, yet she would never come near him, that he might touch her. Oftentimes he called to her and prayed of her, but she would not. And when he sought to seize her, she dived into the water, as a seal might dive. Nor did he see her again that day. And each day the sound of her voice became sweeter to his ears. So sweet was her voice that he forgot his nets and his cunning, and had no care of his craft. Vermilion-finned and with eyes of bossy gold, the tunnies went by in shoals, but he heeded them not. His spear lay by his side unused, and his baskets of plaited osier were empty. What is osier? O-S-I-E-R. Osier. Hosier, eh? His spear, blah blah blah, what was I missing? Sit in the scene. Breakfast. I need breakfast. No breakfast for Rob. And she came up the next day and said, she came up and sang, we're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. Hello, people joining us now. We have collectively broken Rob. Not in the way that I'm unbreakable. Osier, like a willow tree plant. Would that make sense here? In that context? Where the hell am I? Lost it. There it is. Plaited osier. So like a willow tree. So he's taken the plants. He's plaited a basket out of osier leaves, maybe. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna swim around and desert you. His spear lay by his side unused, and his baskets of plaited osier were empty. With lips parted and eyes dim with wonder, he sat idle in his boat and listening till the sea mists crept around him, and the wandering moon stained his brown limbs with silver. And one evening he called to her and said, little mermaid, I love thee. Take me for thy bridegroom, for I love thee. But the mermaid shook her head. Thou hast a human soul, she answered. If only thou would send away thy soul, then I could love thee. then I could love thee. And the young fisherman said to himself, oh, what use is my soul to me? I cannot see it. I may not touch it. I do not know it. Surely I will send it away from me, and much gladness shall be mine. And with a cry of joy broke from his lips, and standing up in the painted boat, he held out his arms to the mermaid. I will send my soul away, he cried, and you shall be my bride, and I will be thy bridegroom. And in the depth of the sea we shall dwell together. I see a flaw in his plan. And all that thou hast sung of thou shalt show me, and all that thou desirest I will do. Everything. Nor shall our lives be divided. And the little mermaid laughed for pleasure, and hid her face in her hands. But how shall I send my soul from me? Cried the young fisherman. Tell me how I may do it, and lo, it shall be done. Alas, I know not, said the little mermaid. The sea folk have no souls. And she sank down again into the deep, looking wistfully at him. That's how she sank. Have we got the receipt? Oh, do you want to return me? Am I broken? Am I not working anymore? Is there any warranty left? Not for long either. Bad headache. Sorry, Aaron-esque. Sorry to hear that. Hopefully you feel better soon. The child did have a very odd accent. That's right. I'll have to do it if they have a child in this. Her name's on the computer. We don't need receipt. But I don't need a bloody piece of paper. Yeah, I just need your name, sir. Alright, shush. Stop it. It's your fault. It's all Hashtag's fault for suggesting Scouse. Alright. Now, early on the next morning, before the sun was the span of a man's hand above the hill, the young fisherman went to the house of the priest and knocked 3 times at the door. The novice looked out through the wicket. What voice should the priest have? A novice looked out through the wicket, and when he saw who it was, drew back the latch and said to him, What voice? Priest? Somebody? First person? Redeemed. Attempt an accent. Attempt the accent of the potential offspring, in case it doesn't happen in the book. Alright, I'll do that when we get to the end of the chapter, Nicole. He did an epic creep off screen. As she sank back down to the depths. Give the priest the old man voice. Old man. The priest drew back the latch and said, Hee-haw! He said, Enter! And the young fisherman passed in and knelt down on the sweet-smelling rushes of the floor, and cried to the priest, who was reading out of the holy book, and said to him, Father, I am in love with one of the sea folk, and my soul hindereth me from having my desire. Tell me how I can send my soul away from me, and for truth I have no need of it. And what value is my soul to me? I cannot see it. I may not touch it. I do not know it. And the priest beat his breast and answered, Alack, alack, thou art mad, or hast eaten of some poisonous herb, for the soul is the noblest part of a man, and was given us by God, that we should nobly use it. There is no thing more precious than the human soul, nor any earthly thing that can be weighed with it. It is worth all the gold in the world, and as more precious than the rubies of the kings. Therefore, my son, think not any more of this matter, for it's a sin that may not be forgiven. And as for the sea folk, they are lost, and they who would traffic with them are also lost. They are the beasts of the field that know not good from evil, and for them the Lord has not died. The young fisherman's eyes filled with tears when he heard the bitter words of the priest, and he rose up from his knees and said to him, Father, wait, it's hard to cry in Cornish. Father, the fawns live in the forest and are glad, and on the rocks sit the mermen with their harps of red gold. Let me be as they are, I beseech thee, for their days are as the days of flowers. And as for my soul, what doth my soul profit me if it stand between me and the thing I love? The love of the body is vile, cried the priest, knitting his brows, and vile and evil are the pagan things that God suffers us to wander through his world. Accursed be the fawns of the woodland, and accursed be the singers of the sea. I have heard them at night time, and they've sought to lure me from my beds. Oh, no, from my beads. They tap at the window and laugh. They whisper into my ears and the tale of their perilous joys. Excuse me. They tempt me with temptations, and when I would pray, they make mouths at me. Like this. It's awfully vulgar. They are lost, I tell thee. They are lost. For them there's no heaven and no hell, and in neither shall they praise God's name. Yee-haw! Or farther, cried the young fisherman, thou knowest not what thou sayest. Once in my net I snared the daughter of a king. She's fairer than the morning star, and whiter than the moon. For her body I would give my soul, and for her love I would surrender heaven. Tell me what I ask of thee, and let me go in peace. He became Texan. Yeah, it always creeps. It always creeps. Always creeps to Texan if I'm going all southern. My son has an echo and an EKG, and it went very well, and I just got back from being tested for COVID. I'm glad it went well, Penny. This is a very different flavour to what I'm currently running with. But I'm glad you're well, and hope that the COVID test comes back negative for you. If I could be so bold as to suggest some light refreshment for the priest. I'm sure it's not a real mimosa. Somebody may have done it for me. Somebody may have accidentally slipped me something. Away, away, cried the priest. Thy lemon is lost. Lemon? L-E-M-A-N. What's lemon or lemon? Thy lemon is lost, and thou shalt be lost with her. And he gave him no blessing, but drove him from his door. And the young fisherman went down into the marketplace, and he walked slowly, with bowed head, as one who is in sorrow. And when the merchants saw him coming, they began to whisper to each other, and one of them came forth to meet him, and called him by his name, and said to him, let's go Yorkshire with this fella. He goes, what hast thou to sell? I will sell thee my soul, he answered. I pray thee buy it off me, for I am weary of it. What use is my soul to me? I cannot see it, I may not touch it, I do not know it. But the merchants mocked him and said, of what use is a man's soul to us? It's not worth a clipped piece of silver. Sell us thy body for a slave, and we'll clothe thee in a sea purple, and put a ring upon thy finger, and make thee the minion of the great queen. But talk not of a soul, for to us it's not, nor it has any value for our service. And the young fisherman said to himself, How strange a thing this is! The priest telleth me that the soul is worth all the gold in the world, and the merchants say it's not worth a clipped piece of silver. And he passed out of the marketplace and went down to the shore of the sea, and began to ponder on what he should do. Put a ring on it. Nice. My money's on someone definitely clipped something into his orange juice. Yeah. At noon he remembered how one of his companions, who was a gatherer of samphire, had told him of a certain young witch. Did anybody? Lemon, an illicit lover. Ah, okay. Yeah, I wonder if it's lemon or lemon. Your lemon is lost. Lemon means sweetheart, and a lover or a sweetheart, I think he has. At noon he remembered how one of his companions, who was a gatherer of samphire, had told him of a certain young witch who dwelt in a cave at the head of a bay, and was very cunning in her witcheries. And he set to and ran, so eager was he to get rid of his soul, and a cloud of dust followed him as he sped round the sand of the shore. But by the itching of her palm the young witch knew his coming, and she laughed and let down her red hair. With her red hair falling round her, the witch is no doubt going to speak in a second, so you gotta tell me what voice the witch has. Same as lemon. Lemon. Just pronounce the same as lemon. Truly doubt I need it, just have to eliminate it. Absolutely you do. Fancy getting me to hydrate. You genuinely think there's something in it, that's the only reason you want me to hydrate. Valley Girl, alright. With her red hair falling round her, she stood at the opening in the cave, and in her hand she had a spray of wild hemlock that was blossoming. "Oh my god, like, what do you lack? What do you lack?" she cried, as she came panting up the steep, and as he came panting up the steep and bent down before her. "You need, like, fish for the net, or, like, wind, that when the wind is foul? I have a little reed pipe, and when I blow on it, the mullet comes sailing into the bay. But it has a price, like, pretty boy, it has a price. What do you lack? What do you lack? A storm to wreck the ships and wash the chests of riches ashore? Like, I have more storms than the wind has, for I serve one who is stronger than the wind. And with a sieve and a pail of water, I can send the great galleys to the bottom of the sea. But I have a price, pretty boy, I have a price. Like, what do you lack? What do you lack? I know a flower that grows in the valley. None knows of it but I. It has purple leaves and a star in its heart, and its juice is as white as milk. Shouldst thou touch with this flower the hard lips of the queen, she would follow thee all over the world. Out of the bed of the king she would rise, and over the whole world she would follow thee. And it has a price, pretty boy, it has a price. What do you lack? What do you lack? I can pound a toad in the mortar, or make a broth of it, and stir the broth with a dead man's hand. Sprinkle it on thine enemy when he sleeps, and he'll turn into a black viper, and his own mother will slay him. Like, with a wheel I can draw the moon from heaven, and in a crystal I can show thee death. What do you lack? What do you lack? Tell me thy desire, and I'll give it thee, and thou shalt pay me a price, pretty boy, thou shalt pay me a price." "My desire is but for a little thing," said the young fisherman. "Yet hath the priest been wroth with me and driven me forth. It is but for a little thing, and the merchants have mocked me and denied me. Therefore I am come to thee, though men call thee evil, and whatever thy price, I shall pay it." Oh my god, yes, Valley Girl, the accent of my people. I'll keep quiet this time. My people! Are you a Valley Girl, Alan? Truly a great witch. My Valley Girl needs more sass? Like, oh my god, I can't believe you would say that to me, Alan. Like, are you saying that I'm not sassy enough? Like, oh my god, like, Alan, of all people, the person with anal, like, right in his name twice? Like, he thinks, oh my god. Like, can you believe him? Like, oh my god, he's got anal, like, right there in his name. He's like all anal as well. He's like all anal lamb. And he's like, oh, telling me how to sass? Okay. Like, whatever. What wouldst thou? Asked the witch, coming near him. "I would send my soul away from me," answered the young fisherman. It's a very multicultural area. People come from all over to live in this land. Yeah, that's right. It's no region of the UK in particular, because they're all over the place. Bosley, what did I walk in on? Oh god. Is Adam good at his sass, is he? Seriously, what's happened to me? I'm just enjoying life. And it's starting to really sink in for me this week that I can genuinely make a living doing this stuff, and because of the generosity of you guys, and it's making me very happy. So Bosley, you walked in on me reading a short story by Oscar Wilde, and it went downhill when I started opening it up to suggestions about what the characters should sound like. So the old witch. The old witch that my instinct would be gutted to go down here, and what do thee lack? I can do anything for you. Instead is now a Valley Girl. Chef Mario comes in to me talking about anal. Yeah, you've walked in at an interesting time. The little mermaid that this man is in love with is a Scouser, which really cracked me up, like way more than it should have. And the fisherman is a Cornish fella, or West Country at the very least. I would send my soul away from me, answered the young fisherman. The witch grew pale and shuddered, and hid her face in a blue mantle. Oh, pretty boy, she muttered. That is a terrible thing to do. He tossed his brown curls and laughed. My soul is naught to me, he answered. I cannot see it, I may not touch it, I do not know it. What wilt thou give me if I tell thee? Asked the witch, looking down on him with her beautiful eyes. 5 pieces of gold, he said, and my nets, and the wattled house where I live, and the painted boat in which I sail. Only tell me how to get rid of my soul, and I will give thee all that I possess. She laughed mockingly at him. Oh my god, and struck him with a spray of hemlock. I can turn the autumn leaves into gold, she answered, and I can weave the pale moonbeams into silver if I wish it. He whom I serve is richer than all the kings of the world, and has their dominions. What shall I give thee, then? He cried, if thy price be neither gold nor silver. The witch stroked his hair with her thin white hand. Thou must dance with me, pretty boy, she murmured, and she smiled at him as she spoke. Not but that, cried the young fisherman in wonder, and he rose to his feet. Not but that, she answered, and she smiled at him again. Rob has some sass. Baby got S. What the heck, Rob? What the actual heck? Like, oh my god, that's tech. It's crazy. Thank you for the donation, Chef
Lunch
Mario
money.
Sangolese, for lunch money. I appreciate the lunch money. I'm gonna need it after this this session. Although I probably can't eat because by the time this bloody story is done, I'll be late for jujitsu, and I won't be able to eat anything beforehand. This is the content I came for. The sass. Oh my god. Like Shakespeare? Like to be or not to be? Like, that's the question? Like, is it better to be nobler in the mind, to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or like to, take arms against the sea of troubles and by opposing end them? To die, to sleep, no more. To say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to? 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub, though, 'cause, like, in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. No, McCrunjo, I didn't eat breakfast. I never have time for breakfast before a stream. There you go. Didn't even have to redeem anything for it. You got some sassy Shakespeare. Where the fuck was I? This stream's gonna take fucking forever. Not but that, she answered, and she smiled at him again. Then at sunset, in some secret place, we shall dance together, he said. And after that we have danced, thou shalt tell me the thing which I desire to know. She shook her head. Thank you, Miss Bowman, for the bits. I could listen to this all day. Just how I expect Shakespeare-sized words to be vocalized. Yeah, I could hear Shakespeare rolling over in his grave somewhere in Stratford-upon-Avon. Is that where he's buried? I know that's where he's born, right? Hey, thanks for the chia bits, Grimnash. Appreciate that. Hey, Sugar Archibald, how's it going? She shook her head. When the moon is full, she muttered. Then she peered all round and listened. A bluebird rose, screaming from its nest, and circled over the dunes, and 3 spotted birds rustled through the coarse grey grass and whistled to each other. There was no other sound save the sound of a wave fretting the smooth pebbles below. So she reached out her hand. Excuse me. She reached out her hand and drew him near to her, and put her dry lips close to his ear. Tonight thou must come to the top of the mountain, she whispered. It is a Sabbath, and he will be there. Like, if anybody who's anybody, like, he's gonna be there. Welcome to Rob's Accent Says stream. The young fisherman started and looked at her, and she showed her white teeth and laughed. "Who is he whom thou speakest?" he asked. "Oh, it matters not. It doesn't even matter," she asked. "Go thou tonight and stand under the branches of the hornbeam and wait for my coming." I may be adding 300% more likes than is actually in the story. "If a black dog runneth towards thee, strike it with a rod of willow, and it'll go away. If an owl speak to thee, make it no answer. When the moon is full, I shall be with thee, and we shall dance together on the grass, ya. But wilt thou swear to me, and tell me how I may send my soul from me?" he made question. She moved out of the sunlight, and through her red hair rippled the wind. "By the hoofs of the goat, I swear it. I swear it on the hoofs of the goat, ya," she made answer. "Thou art the best of the witches," cried the young fisherman, "and I will surely dance with thee tonight on top of the mountain. I would indeed that thou hadst asked me of either gold or silver, but such as thy price is thou shalt have it, and for it is but a little thing." And he doffed his cap to her, and he bent his head low, and he ran back down to the town, filled with a great joy. Alan's really getting into that. I've heard you're breaking yourself. Yes, Red. I'm breaking myself with hilarity. I'm finding myself very funny. It all started with Hashtag suggesting that the mermaid in this story should be a Scouser, which is still funny. It's still funny to me. And then from there, the witch has become a valley girl. A real tempting offer that. Can see why you may consider it. Don't you want to dance with me? Oh my god, we'll have such a good time in the moonlight, dancing and shit. It's my people. I can't stop laughing. Oh no. Rob, you're too good, man. Shakespeare. Wow, then you fall down with the fuck me. Where was I? That's how most Shakespearean actors call for a line. They give me the old oh shit. How does Richard III start? In days of yore, something days of yore. Oh man, I can't remember Richard III. What else do I know? Praise. Oh, I'm trying to remember any other Shakespeare now. I don't want to just go back on my my go-to soliloquy. Fuck it, can't remember it. It's been too long. You're gonna want to check the Discord later, Rob. Oh, okay. have you been checking in a bunch of the clips and shit? You do good work. Good work, Macranjo. You do good work. Or should I say bumface? That also made me laugh more than it should have. And that evening, wait, where was I? No, doffed his cap, ran back down to the town, and the witch watched him as he went. And when he'd passed from her sight, she entered her cave, and having taken a mirror from a box of carved cedar wood, she set it up on a frame and burned vervain on lighted charcoal before it. Vervain is probably some kind of incense. Peered through the coils of the smoke, and after a time she clenched her hands in anger. Oh, I see. She clenched her hands in anger and said, "Oh my god, he should have been mine! I'm as fair as she is!" Jealous witch. She wants him. Don't know why she just wants a fisherman, but she wants him. In fair Verona, where we lay our scene, that's right. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, and therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. Now everybody's quoting the best Shakespeare that they've got. Two houses, both alike in dignity. What a sassy bitch. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Something, darling buds of May. Something. Yeah, she wants the fisherman because he got back. That evening, when the moon had risen, I really have to stop being distracted. There is so much left of this story. It looks like we might be reading this tomorrow. Yeah, we're definitely going to be reading this tomorrow. This is a long story. 254 and I'm on 222. I've still got 32 pages left and I've gone about 10-ish. Distraction. The distraction really is there. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to read this tomorrow because it's nearly 11 o'clock and I've got jiu-jitsu at 12. That evening, when the moon had risen and the young fisherman climbed up to the top of the mountain, oh man, Squonk's going to be so disappointed. Oh, I told Squonk that today was going to be the last day because I didn't expect this story to take so bloody long. More sassy Shakespeare! More sassy Shakespeare! I'll have to bring up some Shakespeare for Robert Reeds at some point and read the whole thing in sass. Oh my god, is this a dagger which I see before me? Its handle point toward my hand? Just sassy chat, give it to us, give the people what they want. No, leave them wanting more. I've got to finish this story. I'm quite invested in the story now. There's like a lot going on. It's well set up. Oscar Wilde usually sets up a story really well. It's just the end that he fucks up. But the story is set up well, so I'm enjoying it. I'm invested. I want to know what happens to the Scouse mermaid. I wanna know what happens to the mermaid up there in the sun. And palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. God damn, so we've got some real Shakespeare nuts in the chat. Weary to bed, I haste me with my something. I used to know a bunch of soliloquies and sonnets too. That evening, when the moon had risen, the young fisherman climbed to the top of the mountain and stood under the branches of the hornbeam. Like a targe of polished metal, the round sea lay at his feet, and the shadows of the fishing boats moved in a little bay. A great owl with yellow, sulphurous eyes called to him by his name, but he made no answer. A black dog ran towards him and he snarled. He struck it with a rod of willow, and it went away whining. At midnight the witches came flying through the air like bats. Phew! They cried, as they lit upon the ground. There is someone here we know not! And they sniffed about, and chatted to each other, and made signs. Last of all came the young witch with the red hair streaming in the wind. She wore a dress of gold tissue embroidered with peacock's eyes, and a little cap of green velvet was on her head. Where is he? Like, where is he? Shrieked the witches when they saw her, but she only laughed, and ran to the hornbeam, and taking the fisherman by the hand, she led him out into the moonlight and began to dance. Round and round they whirled, and the young witch jumped so high he could not see the scarlet heels of her shoes. That is a very high jump. And then right across the dancers came the sound of the galloping of a horse, but no horse was seen, and he felt afraid. Faster! Cried the witch, and she threw her arms about his neck, and her breath was hot upon his face. Faster! Faster! She cried, and the earth seemed to spin beneath his feet, and his brain grew troubled, and a great terror fell upon him, as of some evil thing that was watching him, and at last he became aware that under the shadow of a rock there was a figure that had not been there before. It was a man dressed in a suit of black velvet cut in the Spanish fashion. His face was strangely pale, but his lips were like proud red flowers. He seemed weary, and was leaning back, toying in a listless manner with the pommel of his dagger. On the grass beside him lay a plumed hat, and a pair of riding gloves gauntleted with gilt lace, and sewn with seed pearls wrought into a curious device. A short cloak lined with sables hung from his shoulder, and his delicate white hands were gemmed with rings. Heavy eyelids drooped over his eyes. What voice should this guy have in case he speaks, which he probably will? I will have my pound of flesh. We need a sass demand. Do a Z snap. I'm not a performing monkey, Macranjo. Oh no, wait, that is exactly what I am. Oh my god. Extreme gamer. What we really need now is the Artstream goal. Donate now. Fancy's adding another command. Rob is all the sass. It's not me that's the sass, it's the witch. It's like all the witch. It's not even me. I didn't even complete the Z. Oh my god. Do they start on the side of the hand? It is, isn't it? Like that. I've only ever known it as a 2 thing. Dressed in black velvet, cut in the Spanish fashion, blah blah blah. I keep making a 7. It's not a 4 thing. They don't do it 4 times. That's crazy. Bullshit. They don't do 4. Oh my god. Is it inflation? Is it inflation? When I was a kid, it was just 2. No, you didn't. Oh my god, no, you didn't. Is it increased over a sideways W? Sideways W would be an epsilon, but also it would be 5 things. I don't know. I'm just making it up. It's definitely 4. Distraction. Shit. You guys suck. Stop fucking distracting me. I've got through only like a quarter of this fucking book. It's gonna take me the rest of the week just to get through this book. So he's dancing with witches. He sees that they're getting faster, and he feels like someone's watching him. He's getting a little bit creeped out now for the first time, which is weird. He sees a weird stranger standing under the tree. What does the stranger sound like? It takes 3.5 snaps, does it, Dan? Thanks. That's helpful. You suck, Rob. Can't even remember what letters look like anymore. Do they snap in like a delta? Oh my god. Or like a capital delta? They snap in a capital epsilon. He's wearing a Spanish suit. Give him a Spanish accent or Mexican. He's wearing a Spanish cut suit, so he's gonna be Spanish. He's gonna be like Zorro. Silent and in the night. Puss in Boots. His face was strangely pale, his lips were a proud red flower. I've read all of this, blah blah blah. A short cloak lined with sables hung from his shoulder, and his delicate white hands were gemmed with rings. Heavy eyelids drooped over his eyes. The young fisherman watched him, as one snared in a spell. At last their eyes met, and wherever he danced, it seemed to him that the eyes of a man were upon him. He heard the witch laugh, and caught her by the waist, and whirled her madly round and round. Suddenly a dog bayed in the woods, and the dancers stopped, and going up 2 by 2, knelt down and kissed the man's hands. As they did so, a little smile touched his proud lips, as a bird's wing touches the water, and it makes it laugh. But there was disdain in it. He kept looking at the young fisherman. "Come, let us worship," whispered the witch, and she led him up. And a great desire to do as she besought him seized on him, and he followed her. But when he came close, and without knowing why he did it, he made on his breast the sign of the cross, and called upon the holy name. No sooner had he done so than the witches screamed like hawks and flew away, and the pallid face that had been watching him twitched with a spasm of pain. The man went over to the little wood and whistled. A jennet with silver trappings came running to meet him, and as he leapt upon the saddle— what's a jennet? A type of riding horse of some kind. Jennet. A jennet with silver trappings came running up to meet him. As he leapt upon the saddle, he turned around and looked at the young fisherman sadly. And the witch with the red hair tried to fly away also, but the fisherman caught her by her wrists and held her fast. "Oh, let me go! Loose me!" she cried, "and let me go! For thou hast named what should not be named, and shown the sign that may not be looked at." "Nay," he answered, "but I will not let thee go till thou hast told me the secret." "What secret?" said the witch, wrestling with him like a wild cat and biting her foam-flecked lips. "Thou knowest," he made answer. Her grass-green eyes grew dim with tears, and she said to the fisherman, "Ask me anything but that. I'll do anything but that." He laughed and held her all the more tightly. And when she saw that she could not free herself, she whispered to him, "Surely I am as fair as the daughter of the sea, and as comely as those who dwell in the blue waters." And she fawned on him and put her face close to his. But he thrust her back, frowning, and said to her, "If thou keepest not the promise that thou madest to me, I will slay thee for a false witch." She grew grey at the bosom of the Judas tree, and shuddered. "Be it not so," she muttered. "It is thy soul and not mine." No, she's turning Cornish now. "Oh my God, be it so," she muttered. "It is thy soul and not mine. Do with it as thou wilt." And she took from her girdle a little knife that had the handle of green viper's skin, and gave it to him. What shall this serve me?" he asked of her, wondering. She was silent for a few moments, and had a look of terror came upon her face. And then she brushed her hair back from her forehead, and smiling strangely, she said to him, "What men call the shadow of the body is not the shadow of the body, but it's the body of the soul. Stand on the seashore with thy back at the moon, and cut away from round thy feet thy shadow, which is thy soul's body, and bid thy soul leave thee, and it will do so." The young fisherman trembled. "Is it true?" he murmured. "It is true, and I would that I had not told thee of it," she cried, and she clung to his knees, weeping. He put her from him and left her in the rank grass, and going to the edge of the mountain, he placed the knife in his belt and began to climb down. And his soul, that was within him, called out to him and said, what should his soul sound like? Should sound like him a bit, I guess. The melting pot continues, that's right. You note the stranger never actually got to speak, though, in Spanish. German for cognitive dissonance. The word for today is giddy. Today's stream's brought to you by the letter G and the word giddy. It's a small Spanish horse. Hey, we went right with Spanish then. Thank you, Janet. Your crisis is on point. I didn't even do anything. So by the time we start this again tomorrow, who's going to remember anything other than the accents? Because I will remember none of the story. Fisherman falls in love with a mermaid. Mermaid tells him they can't be together until he gets rid of his soul. He goes to a witch to get rid of his soul. Witch is also in love with him. Bingo, we're up to date. Blah, 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 blah. What have I done? His soul was within him and called out to him and said, "Yarr! He has the soul of a pirate. I started out saying he had a touch of pirate, and then he just became West Country. So now I'm going back to the pirate thing. Lo, I have dwelt with thee for all these years, and I have been thy servant. Send me not away from thee now, for what evil have I done thee?" And the young fisherman laughed. "Thou hast done me no evil, but I have no need of thee. Thank you for the follow, CM Today. You've very peculiar stream for you to follow on. Yep, that's taken nearly 2 hours, Nicole, that's right. 1 hour 41 minutes. "Thou hast done me no evil, but I have no need of thee," he answered. "The world is wide, and there is heaven also, and hell, and that dim twilight house that lies between. Go wherever thou wilt, but trouble me not, for my love is calling to me." And his soul beseech him piteously. But he heeded it not, but leapt from crag to crag, being sure-footed as a wild goat. And at last he reached the level ground and the yellow shore of the sea. Bronze-limbed and well-knit, like a statue wrought by a Grecian, he stood on the sand, with his back to the moon, and out of the foam came white arms that beckoned him, and out of the waves rose dim forms that did him homage. Before him lay his shadow, which was the body of his soul, and behind him hung the moon, in the honey-coloured air. And his soul said to him, "If indeed thou must drive me from thee, send me not forth without a heart. The world is cruel, give me thy heart to take with me." He tossed his head and smiled. With what should I love my love if I gave thee my heart?" he cried. "Nay, but be merciful," said his soul. "Give me thy heart, for the world is very cruel, and I am afraid." "My heart is my love's," he answered. "Therefore tarry not, but get thee gone." "Should I not love also?" asked his soul. "Get thee gone, for I have no need of thee," cried the young fisherman. And he took the little knife with its handle of green viper's skin, and he cut away the shadow from around his feet. And it rose up and stood before him, and looked at him, and was even as himself. He crept back, and thrust the knife into his belt, and a feeling of awe came over him. "Get thee gone," he murmured, "and let me see thy face no more." "Nay, but we must meet again," said the soul. Its voice was low and flute-like, and its lips hardly moved while it spake. "How shall we meet?" cried the young fisherman. Thou wilt not follow me into the depths of the sea?" "Once every year I will come to this place and call to thee," said the soul. "It may be that thou wilt have need of me." "What should I have need of thee?" cried the young fisherman. "But be it as thou wilt, and he plunged into the water, and the Tritons blew their horns, and the little mermaid rose up to meet him, and put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the mouth. And the Soul stood on the lonely beach and watched them, and when they'd sunk back down into the sea, it went away, weeping over the marshes. After a year was over, the Soul came down to the shore of the sea, and called to the young fisherman, and he rose out of the deep, and said, "Why dost thou call to me?" And the Soul answered, "Yar, come nearer, that I may speak with thee, for I have seen marvellous things." So he came nearer, and crouched in the shallow water, and leaned his head upon his hand and listened. And the Soul said to him, "When I left thee, I turned my face to the east, and journeyed. From the east cometh everything that is wise. 6 days I journeyed. On the morning of the 7th day I came to a hill that is in the country of the Tartars. I sat down under the shade of a tamarisk tree to shelter myself from the sun. The land was dry and burnt up with the heat. The people went to and fro over the plain like flies crawling on a disc of polished copper. What are you saying? What's going on? I feel like I'm missing jokes here. But Rob, did he know? I mean, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What's... Who's telling me things? Shush. I'm reading. Just sit comfortably. Just sit comfortably and listen. When it was noon, a cloud of red dust rose up from the flat rim of the land. When the Tartars saw it, they strung their painted bows, and having leapt upon the little horses, they galloped to meet it. When women fled behind to the wagons, and hid themselves behind the felt curtains. At twilight the Tartars returned, but 5 of them were missing, and of those that came back, not a few had been wounded. They harnessed their horses to the wagons, and drove hastily away. 3 jackals came out of a cave, and peered after them. Then they sniffed up the air with their nostrils, and trotted off in the opposite direction. When the moon rose, I saw a campfire burning on the plain, and went towards it. A company of merchants were seated around it on carpets. Their camels were picketed behind them. Thank you for the follow, Lognarok. A company of merchants was seated round it on carpets. Their camels were picketed behind them, and the negroes who were their servants were pitching tents on tanned skin upon the sand, making a high wall of the prickly pear. When you pick a paw or the prickly pear, and you prick a raw paw, well, next time beware. As I came near them, the chief of the merchants rose up and drew his sword and asked me my business. I answered that I was a prince in my own land, and I had escaped from the Tartars, who had sought to make me their slave. The chief smiled and showed me 5 heads fixed upon long reeds of bamboo. And then he asked me who was the prophet of God, and I answered him, Mohammed. When he heard the name of the false prophet, he bowed and took me by the hand, and placed me by his side. A negro brought me some mare's milk in a wooden dish, and a piece of lamb's flesh roasted. At daybreak we started on our journey. I rode on a red-haired camel by the side of the chief, and a runner ran before us carrying a spear. The men of war were on either hand, and the mules followed with merchandise. There were 40 camels in the caravan, and the mules were twice 40 in number. It sounds like he doesn't know any number bigger than 40. What's going on in the chat? You guys are going crazy. We went from the country of the Tartars into the country of those who curse the moon. We saw the griffins guarding their gold on the white rocks, and the scaled dragons sleeping in their caves. As we passed over the mountains, we held our breath, lest the snows might fall on us, and each man tied a veil of gauze before his eyes. As we passed through the valleys, the pygmies shot arrows at us from the hollows of the trees. And at night time we heard the wild men beating on their drums. When we came to the Tower of Apes, we set fruits before them, and they did not harm us. When we came to the Tower of Serpents, we gave them warm milk in bowls of brass, and they let us go by. 3 times in our journey we came to the banks of the Oxus. We crossed it on rafts of wood with great bladders of blown hide. The river horses raged against us and sought to slay us. When the camels saw them, they trembled. The kings of each city levied tolls on us, but would not suffer us to enter their gates. They threw us bread over the walls, little maize cakes baked in honey, and cakes of fine flour filled with dates. For every 100 baskets we gave them a bead of amber. When the dwellers in the village saw us coming, they poisoned the wells and fled to the hill summits. We fought with the Magadai, who are born old, and grow younger and younger every year, and die when they're little children. And we fought with the Lactroi, who say that they're sons of tigers, who paint themselves yellow and black, and with the Orants, who bury their dead on tops of trees, and themselves live in dark caverns, lest the sun, who is their god, should slay them. We fought with the Crimnians, who worship a crocodile, and give it earrings of green grass, and feed it with butter and fresh fowls, and with the Agazonbe, who are dog-faced, and with the Scythians, who have horses' feet, and run more swiftly than horses. A third of our company died in battle, and a third died of want. The rest murmured against me, and said that I had brought them an evil fortune. I took a horned adder from beneath a stone, and let it sting me, and when they saw that I did not sicken, they grew afraid. In the 4th month, we reached the city of Illel. It was night time when we came to the grove that is outside the walls, and the air was sultry, for the moon was travelling in Scorpio. We took the ripe pomegranates from the trees and broke them, drank their sweet juices, and lay down on our carpets and waited for the dawn. And at dawn we rose and knocked at the gate of the city. It was wrought out of red bronze, and carved with sea dragons and dragons that have wings. The guards looked down from the battlements and asked us our business. The interpreter of the caravan answered that we'd come from the island of Syria with much merchandise. They took hostages and told us that they would open the gate to us at noon, and bade us tarry till then. When it was noon, they opened the gate, and as we entered in, the people came crowding out of the houses to look at us. And a crier went round the city, crying through a shell. We stood in the marketplace, and the negroes uncorded the bales of figured cloths, and opened the carved chests of sycamore. And when they ended their tasks, the merchants set forth their strange wares, and waxed linen from Egypt, and painted linen from the country of the Ethiops, and purple sponges from Tyre, and blue hangings from Sidon, cups of cold amber, and the fine vessels of glass, and the curious vessels of burnt clay. From the roof of a house, a company of women watched us. One of them wore a mask of gilded leather. And on the first day the priests came and bartered with us, and on the second day came the nobles, and then on the third day came the craftsmen and the slaves. And this is their custom with all merchants, as long as they tarry in the city. And we tarried for a moon. When the moon was waning, I wearied and wandered away through the cities of the street, came to the garden of its god. The priests in their yellow robes moved silently through the green trees, and on a pavement of black marble stood the red-rosed house, in which the god had his dwelling. The doors were of powdered lacquer, and bulls and peacocks were wrought on them in raised and polished gold. The tilted roof was of sea-green porcelain, and the jutting eaves were festooned with little bells. And when the white doves flew past, they struck the bells with their wings and made them tinkle. In front of the temple was a pool of clear water, paved with veined onyx. I lay down beside it, and with my pale fingers I touched the broad leaves. One of the priests came towards me and stood behind me. He had sandals on his feet, one of soft serpent skin and the other of bird's plumage. On his head was a mitre of black felt, decorated with silver crescents. 7 yellows were woven into his robe, and his frizzled hair was stained with antimony. Good lord, do we need this much detail? The guy's talking. Horace the Spider, thanks for the follow. Oscar Wilde likes to ramble, as we all know now. But it makes for very unrealistic conversations, because what happened then was this shadow that was once the soul of this man has gone back to him after a year of being apart. And he's called out to him, And this is the first time that this man has seen his soul since the day he actually saw it for the first time, which was the day he got rid of it. And instead of there being any back and forth, he says, "What are you here for?" And then he just swims there, treading water for like 4 pages while he just listens to this guy ramble, just ramble and ramble and ramble for 4 pages, and he's just like listening, nodding, no discourse, no back and forth, no discussion. It happens all the time in Oscar Wilde's writing, I've found. After a little while he spoke to me, and he asked me my desire. I told him that my desire is to see the god. "The god is hunting," he told me, looking strangely at me with his small slanting eyes. "Tell me in what forest, and I will ride with him," I answered. He combed out the soft fringes of his tunic by his long pointed nails, and said, "The god is asleep." "Tell me on what couch, and I will watch by him," I answered. "The god is at the feast," he cried. "If the wine be sweet, I will drink it with him, and if it be bitter, I will drink it with him also," was my answer. He bowed his head in wonder, and taking me by the hand, he raised me up and led me into the temple. In the first chamber I saw an idol seated on a throne of jasper, bordered with great orient pearls. It was carved out of ebony, and in stature was of stature of a man. On its forehead was a ruby, and thick oil dripped from its hair onto its thighs. Its feet were red with the blood of a newly slain kid, and its loin girt with a copper belt that was studded with 7 beryls. And I said to the priest, "Is that the god?" And he answered me, "This is the god." "Show me the god," I cried, "or I will surely slay thee." And I touched his hand, and it became withered. And the priest besought me, saying, "Let my god heal his servant, and I will show him the god." So I breathed with my breath upon his hand, and it became whole again. And he trembled and led me into the second chamber. And I saw an idol standing on a lotus of jade, hung with great emeralds. It was carved out of ivory, and in stature was twice the stature of a man. On its forehead was a chrysolite, and its breasts were smeared with myrrh and cinnamon. Okay. On its forehead was a chrysolite. I've just read that bit. In one hand it held a crooked sceptre of jade, and in the other a round crystal. It wore buskins of brass, and its thick neck was circled with a circle of selenites. And I said to the priest, "Is this the god?" And he answered me, "This is the god." And we all know where this is going, because Oscar Wilde likes to do things very repetitively. "Show me the god," I cried, "or I will surely slay thee." And I touched his eyes, and they became blind. Just walked forward and boop, right on the eye. And the priest besought me, saying, "Let my god heal his servant, and I will show him the god." So I breathed with my breath upon his eyes, and he said, "Oof, god damn." He trembled again, and the sight came back to him. He led me into the third chamber. And lo, there was no idol in it at all, no image of any kind, but only a mirror of round metal set on an altar of stone. And I said to the priest, "Where is the god?" And he answered me, "There is no god but this mirror that thou seest, for this is the mirror of wisdom. And it reflecteth all things that are in heaven and on earth, save only the face of him who looketh into it. This is reflecteth not, so that he who looketh into it may be wise. Many other mirrors are there, but there are only mirrors of opinion. This only is the mirror of wisdom. And they who possess this mirror know everything, nor is there anything hidden from them. And they who possess it not have no wisdom. Therefore it is the god, and we worship it." And I looked into the mirror, and it was even as he said it to me. Where's the fucking mermaid? "And I did a strange thing, but what I did matters not. For in a valley that is but a day's journey from this place, have I hidden the mirror of wisdom. Do but suffer me to enter into thee again, and be thy servant, and thou shalt be wiser than all the wise men, and wisdom shall be thine. Suffer me to enter into thee, and none will be as wise as thou. It's quite a pickup line. But the young fisherman laughed. Hey, it's my voice again. But the young fisherman laughed. Love is better than wisdom, he cried, and the little mermaid loves me. Nay, but there is nothing better than wisdom, said the soul. Love is better, answered the young fisherman, and he plunged into the deep, and the soul went weeping away over the marshes. That was quite a story he told him for such a dismissed response. Actually, love is better than wisdom. All up for nothing. Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to Oscar Wilde, sugar. Yeah, she went back to Liverpool. She went back to Liverpool with all of her things, all of her wonderful things. Dyrozix, thanks for the follow, Dyrozix. Garçon, refill my mimosa. Garçon. I could refill my mimosa with water. Garçon, water down my mimosa. What did I miss? Did I miss anything? What are you yakking about? Oh my god, I hope it's not going to be the same situation again. It probably is. It's Oscar Wilde. Here we go. And after the second year was over, the soul came down to the shore of the sea and called to the young fisherman. And he rose out of the deep and said, Why dost thou call to me? And the soul answered, I'm really starting to regret giving this soul a pirate voice now. I didn't know that the soul was going to be the main bloody thing. Who doesn't name your... it's as it sounds, Dyrozix. I can imagine people might get the X and the Z mixed up as they read it. Dyroxes. But that's even harder to say. Dyrozix. Or Dyrozix, maybe people say. The wrong emphasis. Maybe the mermaid ends up as catch of the day on a menu. No, mate, don't eat me. I'm sentient. Is it going to be the same thing? Is he going to tell another stupid, long and drawn-out story? Oh, God, I think he is. I don't want to keep up a pirate voice for 5 more pages. I'm going to change the soul's voice because I can. I'm omnipotent. Omnipotent? Impotent, that's the word. What's the soul going to sound like? What's a more keep-upable voice? Scout. No. What have I got? What have I used? Dyrozix subscribed even. Oh, Nicole, give the gift to Dyrozix. Enjoy that. Those emotes that you've now got access to, Dyrozix. And if you should happen to want to join my Discord, you can access the private channel in there as well now. Thank you again for your generosity, Nicole. Some hype in the chat for Nicole's continuing generosity. You're given 58 total subs in this channel now. Good on you. Scottish. Alright, fancy. Let's make this let's keep up Scottish for the next 4 or 5 pages. Let me try and get back into it. Why dost thou call to me? And the soul answered, Come nearer, that I may speak with thee, for I have seen marvellous things. So he came nearer, and crouched in the shallow water, and leaned his head upon his hand and listened. And the soul said, When I left thee... Nope, that's back to being him again. Scottish. When I left thee, I turned my face to the south, and I journeyed. Oh, we're going to have to go through this with every cardinal direction, aren't we? The last one was east, and now he's going south. Well, I suppose he's only got 3 directions, because one direction's into the ocean. When I left thee, I turned my face to the south, and I journeyed. From the south cometh everything that's precious. 6 days I journeyed. That's not good. 6 days. 6 days I journeyed along the highways that lead to the city of Ashtar, along the dusty red along the dusty, red-dyed highways on which the pilgrims are wont to go, did I, Jenny? And on the morning of the 7th day, I feel like I'm not warm enough for Scottish. There's a lot of rolling of the tongue. On the morning of the 7th day, I lifted up my eyes, and lo, the city lay at my feet, for it's in a valley. There are 9 gates to this city, and in front of each gate stands a bronze horse that neighs when the Bedouins come down from the mountains. The walls are cased with copper, and the watchtowers on the wall are roofed with brass. In every tower stands an archer with a bow in his hand. At sunrise he strikes with an arrow on a gong, and at sunset he blows through the horn of a horn. When I sought to enter, the guards stopped me and asked me of who I was. I made answer that I was a dervish, and I was on my way to the city of Mecca, where there was a green veil on which the Quran was embroidered in silver letters by the hands of the angels. You know, I'm just a Scottish Muslim. There's a dime a dozen around here. They were filled with wonder and entreated me to pass in. Inside it is even as a bazaar. Surely thou shouldst have been with me. Across the narrow streets, the gay lanterns of paper flutter like large butterflies. When the wind blows on the roofs, they rise and fall as painted bubbles do. In front of their booths sit the merchants on silken carpets. They have straight black beards, and their turbans are covered with gold sequins, and long strings of amber and carved peach stones glide through their cool fingers. Some of them sell galbanum and nard, N-A-R-D. Some of them sell galbanum and nard, and curious perfumes of the islands of the Indian Sea, and the thick oil of red roses and myrrh, and little nail-shaped cloves. When one stops to speak to them, they throw pinches of frankincense upon a charcoal brazier to make the air sweet. I saw a Syrian who held in his hands a thin rod like a reed. Grey threads of smoke came from it, and its odour, as it burned, was the odour of a pink almond in spring. Others sell silver bracelets embossed all over with creamy blue turquoise stones, and anklets of brass wire fringed with little pearls, and tiger's claws set in gold, and the claws of that gilt cat, the leopard, set in gold also, and earrings of pierced emerald, and finger rings of hollowed jade. From the tea houses come the sound of the guitar, and the opium smokers with their white smiling faces look out at the passers-by. Of a truth thou shouldst have been with me. The wine sellers elbow their way through the crowd with great black skins on their shoulders. Most of them sell the wine of Shiraz, which is as sweet as honey. They serve it in little metal cups and strew rose leaves upon it. In the marketplace stand the fruit sellers, who sell all kinds of fruit, ripe figs with their bruised purple flesh, melons smelling of musk and yellow as topazes, citrons and rose apples and clusters of white grapes, round red gold oranges and oval lemons of green gold. Once I saw an elephant go by. Its trunk was painted with vermilion and turmeric, and over its ears it had a net of crimson silk cord. Crimson silk cord. My tongue's not moving fast enough for Scottish. It had a net of crimson silk cord. It's hard to roll an R right into a D. Cord. It stopped opposite one of the booths and began eating the oranges, and the man only laughed. Thou canst not think how strange people they are. When they are glad, they go to the bird sellers and buy them a caged bird, and set it free, that their joy might be greater. And when they're sad, they scourge themselves with thorns, that their sorrow might not grow less. One evening I met some negroes carrying a heavy palanquin through the bazaar. Nard, probably used as a perfume in this setting, or as an incense. Thank you, Lyric Lost. Carrying a heavy palanquin through a bazaar. What's a palanquin? P-A-L-A-N-Q-U-I-N. Palanquin. Carrying a heavy palanquin through the bazaar. It was made of gilded bamboo, and the poles were of vermilion lacquer studded with brass peacocks. Across the windows hung thin curtains of muslin embroidered with beetles' wings and with tiny seed pearls. And as it passed by, a pale-faced Circassian looked out and smiled at me. I followed behind, and the slaves hurried their steps and scowled, but I did not care. I felt a great curiosity come over me. He's going off on the oddest tangents. Absolutely, Nicole. He likes to. This feels like chapter 11 of Picture of Dorian Gray was, where he just listed a whole bunch of shit to just prove how worldly he was. Hey, look at all these silks that I can name, and look at all these gemstones I can name, and look at how my imagination can put together these cities and the types of cities that they would look like. Palanquin. Ah, is that how it's pronounced? Palanquin. One of those litters that people sit in and have other people carry them around. I thought that was called a. I had a name for that. Palanquin. No, it wasn't palanquin. Maybe it's just a different culture, different region thing. Because I'm sure they evolved divergently. I'm sure that various cultures came up with them. So they probably just call them different things in different places. A palanquin. A sedan chair. That wasn't it either, Miss Bowman. There was another name for it. The first one I think of when I think of that is the backpack version that Kronk wears in Emperor's New Groove. But it's a chair version rather than like an enclosed hut version. But thank you, Lyric. I appreciate it. So, palanquin. Cool. At last they stopped at a square white house. Where are we? Wrong lever, Crunk! Thanks, L. Brown. Interesting tidbit. This wallpaper and I are fighting a duel to the death. Either it goes or I do. I felt a great curiosity come over me. At last they stopped at a square white house. There were no windows to it, only a little door like the door of a tomb. They set down the palanquin and knocked three times with a copper hammer. An Armenian in kaftan of green leather peered through the wicket, and when he saw them, he opened and spread a carpet on the ground, and the woman stepped out. As she went in, she turned round and smiled at me again. I have never seen anyone so pale. When the moon rose, I returned to the same place and sought for the house, but it was no longer there. When I saw that, I knew who the woman was, and wherefore she'd smiled at me. Certainly thou shouldst have been with me. On the feast of the new moon, the new emperor came forth from his palace and went into the mosque to pray. His hair and beard were dyed with rose leaves, and his cheeks were powdered with fine gold dust. The palms of his feet and hands were yellow with saffron. At sunrise he went forth from his palace in a robe of silver, and at sunset he returned to it again in a robe of gold. The people flung themselves on the ground, and they hid their faces, but I would not do so. I stood by the stall of a seller of dates, and I waited. And when the emperor saw me, he raised his painted eyebrows and stopped. I stood quite still, and made him no obeisance. The people marvelled at my boldness, and counselled me to flee from the city. I paid no heed to them, but I went and sat with the sellers of strange gods, who by reason of their craft are abominated. When I told them what I'd done, each of them gave me a god and prayed me to leave them. That night, as I lay on a cushion in the tea house that is in the street of pomegranates, the guards of the emperor entered and led me to the palace. As I went in, they closed each door behind me and put a chain across it. Inside was a great court, with arcade running all around. The walls were of white alabaster, set here and there with blue and green tiles. The pillars were of green marble, and the pavement a kind of peach blossom marble. I'd never seen anything like it before. As I passed across the court, two veiled women looked down from a balcony and they cursed me. The guards hastened on, and the butts of the lances rang upon the polished floor. They opened a gate of wrought ivory, and I found myself in a watered garden of 7 terraces. It was planted with tulip cups and moonflowers, and silver-studded aloes. Like a slim reed of crystal, a fountain hung in the dusky air. The cypress trees were like burnt-out torches. From each one of them a nightingale was singing. Get to the point. At the end of the garden stood a little pavilion. As we approached it, 2 eunuchs came out to meet us. Their fat bodies swayed as they walked, and they glanced curiously at me with their yellow-lidded eyes. One of them drew aside a captain of the guard and in a low voice whispered to him, and the other kept munching scented pastilles, which he took with an affected gesture out of an oval box of lilac enamel. After a few moments, the captain of the guard dismissed the soldiers. They went back to the palace, the eunuchs following slowly behind and plucking out the sweet mulberries from the trees as they passed. Once the elder of the 2 turned round and smiled at me with an evil smile. That's an evil smile, right? Then the captain of the guard motioned me towards the entrance to the pavilion. I walked on without trembling, and drawing the heavy curtain aside, I entered in. The young emperor was stretched on a couch of dyed lion skins, and a gerfalcon perched upon his wrist. Beside him stood a brass-turbaned Nubian, naked down to the waist, and with heavy earrings in his split ears. On a table by the side of the couch lay a mighty scimitar of steel. Rob loves to give himself, that's right. Gotta give you something to do. When the emperor saw me, he frowned and said to me, "Oh," but this is him quoting the emperor, so he's not going to be great at the voice. He said to me, "What is thy name? Knowest thou not that I am emperor of the city?" But I made him no answer. He pointed with his finger at the scimitar, and the Nubian seized it and rushed forward and struck at me with great violence. The blade whizzed through me and did me no hurt. The man fell sprawling on the floor, and when he rose up, his teeth chattered with terror, and he hid himself behind the couch. The emperor leapt to his feet, and taking a lance from the stand of arms, he threw it at me. I caught it in flight, and broke the shaft into 2 pieces. He shot at me with an arrow, but I held up my hands, and it stopped it in mid-air. And then he drew a dagger from his belt of white leather, and he stabbed the Nubian in the throat, lest the slave should tell of his dishonour. The man writhed like a trampled snake, and a red foam bubbled from his lips. As soon as he was dead, the emperor turned to me, and when he'd wiped away the bright sweat from his brow with a little napkin of purfled and purple silk, he said to me, "Art thou a prophet, that I may not harm thee, or the son of a prophet, that I can do thee no hurt? I pray thee leave my city tonight, for while thou art in it, I am no longer its lord." I am no longer its lord. Lord. Lord's another one because it's got another rolled R right into a D. I have to speak to Fancy and get some tips on how to say words that end in RD. "For while thou art in it, I am no longer its lord. Lord." And I answered him, I will go for half of thy treasure. Give me half of thy treasure, and I will go away." He took me by the hand and led me out into the garden. When the captain of the guard saw me, he wondered. When the eunuchs saw me, their knees shook and they fell upon the ground in fear. There is a chamber in the palace that has 8 walls of red porphyry, and a brass-scaled ceiling hung with lamps. The emperor touched one of the walls, and it opened, and we passed down a corridor that was lit with many torches. In niches upon each side stood great wine jars filled to the brim with silver pieces. When we reached the centre of the corridor, the emperor spake the words that may not be spoken, and a granite door swung back on a secret spring, and he put his hands before his face lest his eyes should be dazzled. "Lord, Lord, Lord, Lord." Maybe I'm trying to roll the R too much. Lord, Lord. Oh dear Lord. Oh dear Lord. Lord. Thou couldst not believe how marvellous a place it was. There were huge tortoise shells full of pearls and hollowed moonstones of great size piled up with red rubies. The gold was stored in coffers of elephant hide, and the gold dust in leather bottles. There were opals and sapphires, the former in cups of crystal and the latter in cups of jade. Round green emeralds were ranged in order upon thin plates of ivory, and in one corner were silk bags filled, some with turquoise stones and others with beryls. The ivory horns were heaped with purple amethysts, and here he goes again, listing all of the gemstones that he knows about. Look how worldly I am. And the horns of brass with chalcedonies and sards. I haven't heard of those ones. The pillars which were of cedar. I suppose that's kind of ironic that I'm talking about, look at him talking about all these different things. And then the next two that I read, I don't actually know. Chalcedonies and sards. The pillars which were of cedar were hung with strings of yellow link stones. In the flat oval shields there were carbuncles, both wine-coloured and coloured like grass even. And yet I have told thee but a tithe of what was there. And when the emperor had taken away his hands from before his face, he said to me, This is my house of treasure, and half that's in it's thine, even have I promised to thee. And I will give thee camels and camel drivers, and they shall do thy bidding, and take thy share of the treasure to whatever part of the world thou desirest to go. And the thing shall be done tonight, for I would not that the son, who is my father, should see that there is a city a man. There is in a city a man whom I cannot slay. Thank you for the gifted tier sub again, Nicole standing with the generosity. 59 subs now. Who got it this time? Horace the Spider. Horace the Spider, enjoy your subscription to the channel. Enjoy your ability to spam my hype emotes and my raid emotes and all of the others. Good on you, Nicole. Generous as always. But I answered him, The gold that is here is thine, and the silver also is thine, and thine are the precious jewels and the things of price. As for me, I have no need of these, nor shall I take aught from thee but that little ring that thou wearest on the finger of thy hand. And the emperor frowned. It is but a ring of lead, he cried, nor has it any value. Therefore take half thy treasure and go from my city. Nay, I answered, but I will take naught but that leaden ring, for I know what is written within it and for what purpose. And the emperor trembled, and besought me and said, Take all thy treasure and go from my city. The half that's mine shall be thine also. And I did a strange thing, but what I did matters not, for in a cave, that is but a day's journey from this place, I've hidden the ring of riches. It is but a day's journey from this place, and it waits for thy coming. He who has this ring is richer than all the kings of the world. Come therefore and take it, and the world's riches shall be thine. But the young fisherman... Wait, back to my voice now. Yay. But the young fisherman left. Love is better than riches, he cried, and the little mermaid loves me. Nay, but there's nothing better than riches, said the soul. Love is better, answered the young fisherman, and he plunged into the deep, and the soul went weeping over the marshes. And after the 3rd year was over, the soul came down to the shore on the sea. Tss, winner.
Broken.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner. The soul came down to the shore of the sea and called to the young fisherman, and he rose out of the deep and said, Why dost thou call to me? And the soul answered, What voice should the soul have this time? Because he's had pirate and he's had Scottish. Rob, you dick. Thank you for the subscription, Brett. I appreciate the support. He plays dirty. You don't get a broken emote, Lindamx. You don't get a broken emote until you've actually broken. You haven't broken me. You crashed me. Yeah, you crashed me. That's a different thing. Which is weird because the last time I switched between my scenes, it didn't break, but for some reason switching it this time broke it. I owe you. What do I owe you, Cave? Did you redeem something? I should know. I've got them all up here. Oops. And I've already started reading, so it doesn't count. This distraction doesn't count. Wanted for not getting distracted. That's right. Okay. I asked what South African. Oh, South African. Thanks, Dan. I forgot. I often forget South African because I don't do it too often. I'm not the greatest. I'm not the greatest at South African because I never actually heard a South African accent until I moved to New Zealand. We don't have many South Africans in the UK, right? Like people from the UK, would you agree with that? That you don't see many South Africans? But in New Zealand, there's quite a lot of South African people. We are the champions. No, you're not. You didn't win that. I won it. I won it, Dread. Get out of here with your failed raids and your failed distraction techniques. South African accent. So the soul answered, Come nearer, that I may speak with thee, for I have seen marvellous things. So he came nearer and crouched in the shallow water, and leaned his head upon his hand and listened. I also asked at the end of the last session, at the end of the last reading, I said in year 1 he offered him wisdom, infinite wisdom. In year 2 he offered him riches. Thank you, by the way, of the hype chat. I think when I crashed, the hype train automatically ended. So thank you very much to everyone for the hype. I even putting all the jokes aside, I really do appreciate all of the support and all of the donations and the bits and things. It really helps me to keep going, helps me to keep paying the bills and trying this as a viable career. And it might mean that in 6 months' time, when I finally go back to my bank manager and say, "Hey, look, I can actually support myself," she'll consider me for, actually being a worthy candidate for pre-approval for the bank loan and whatnot, the home loan. But thank you a million times. So I said, what's the soul gonna offer him on the 3rd year? He offered him wisdom. He offered him riches. He's going to offer him something else, and he's going to turn it down all 3 times, and then something's going to happen. What's going to happen at that point, story-wise? What would make sense for it to happen? The witch, I feel, has to come back into it and try and get him back one last time or something. Maybe the mermaid's just going to turn on him and devour him or something. Brit's even gifting subs now. Thank you for gifting subs. That's your first gifted sub in the channel. Sacrifice. I hate when it splits it across 2 lines. Sacrifice. Enjoy your sub, gifted from Brit Scott Clark. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Brit Scott Clark's channel. So I reckon he's going to offer him. He's going to offer him some. What do we like? We go wisdom, power, being in charge, being a king, wealthy, wise, and healthy. Infinite health. I reckon immortality of some kind. Redeemed for wanting to pay my bills. Okay. Wanted for paying your bills. Oh, were you paying your bills for something else that you did you have a debt again? I can't remember. You refreshed and were able to donate channel points again. I think it's because of the crash. This is technically another stream. So there you go. So you managed to crash me, and it managed to give you an extra chance to donate today. I have to spread some of that generosity from the stream today. You had a generous stream today, Britt. That's good to know. Me and Britt gonna get back to our farm tomorrow. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Britt and I stream some Stardew Valley together, with all of the voices, including the Mayor Lewis, who's always choking on something. Fancy said immortality. Cool. You won. You didn't win. No, you broke the stream. You didn't break me. It doesn't count. I am not counting that as a win. Not in a million years. Well, we won, and that's all that matters. You didn't win. No. Where the hell was I? The soul said to him in South African, In a city that I know of, there's an inn that standeth by a river. I sat there with sailors who drank of 2 different coloured wines, and ate bread made of barley, and little salt fish served in bay leaves with vinegar. And as we sat and made merry, there entered to us an old man bearing a leathern carpet, and a lute that had 2 horns of amber. And when he had laid out the carpet on the floor, he struck with a quill on the wire strings of his lute, and a girl whose face was veiled ran in and began to dance before us. Jesus, dreaded. Is this story going to go to another stream? No, I am gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it today, even if I have to ignore all of you. Her face was veiled with a veil of gauze, but her feet were naked. Naked were her feet, and they moved out over the carpet like little white pigeons. Never have I seen anything so marvelous, and the city in which she dances probably. In the city in which she dances is but a day's journey from this place. You're all so annoying. Now when the young fisherman heard the words of his soul, he remembered that the little mermaid had no feet and could not dance, And a great desire came over him, and he said to himself, "It is but a day's journey, and I can return to my love." And he laughed and stood up in the shallow water, and strode towards the shore. And when he had reached the dry shore, and laughed again, and held out his arms to his soul, and his soul gave in to him. What the hell? Why is this? Doesn't seem the same pattern. It's broken the pattern on the third year. He said to himself, "What is this? Hand of life is now following." Thanks for the follow. I just got a boop boop in my head to tell me that my battery's dying in my headphones. What is everybody doing? Just spamming the flag of winning. Except you ain't bloody won. You ain't won a thing. Oh man. Using my bloody USB. Ow. Use a USB. Go around the back of the computer to use the USB. You can say it all you want. It doesn't make it true. You can say the world is flat. It doesn't make it true. You can say you won that battle. It doesn't make it true. God damn it! That is a close up on my face because I've used both of the USB ports in the front of my computer, so I have to somehow reach around the back. I have to give my computer a reach around and use the one on the back to charge my headset from. Who decides, Rob? I think it's us. Well, let me ask you this, Dan. Who's the dictator here? Huh? 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 There you go. Just for you. Just for you, Alan. What do you mean the world is not flat? Shush. So it's gone and broken the pattern. Her face was veiled with a veil of gauze, but her feet were naked. I said that already. Now when the young fisherman heard the words of his soul, wait, no, that's in normal language. That was all the soul was saying today. So he's instead of riches or immortality or anything, it seems he's just offered an even more pretty lady who's dancing. I am quietly sitting here listening to the story. Don't judge me with them, Miss Bowman. You're one of the good ones, Miss Bowman. Except the other day when we raided Dreaded GM and I called her what's the word for it? When you put your weapons down, I called her truce. There's another word for it, a more fancy word. I called her truce, and then you struck someone with an extra raid emote. Then you weren't the good one, but now you are. You're making up for it now. So I put a level on the ground. It said it was flat. That's all the proof I need. Post the hype chest if you think we won. No! It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change it. Hi, Queera Queen. How you doing? I'm in love with Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, cool. Actually, he didn't lack height at all. That's a misconception. But thanks for the weird copy-paste whatever nonsense. Miss Bowman still feels that shame. Probably attention-seeking, fancy. Miss Gangermain's just gone into a rage. Mr. Gangermain. Hey, Nightbot. Hey, don't you go against me. If only I'd paid more attention to how fancy changes commands, I'd be able to change that back again. But I've put too much trust in my mods. I've ended up getting stabbed in the back by my own guards. A2 Brutus. Alright, so he says that there's a beautiful girl dancing nearby. Now when the young fisherman heard the words of his soul, he remembered that the little mermaid had no feet and could not dance, and a great desire came over him, and he said to himself, "Well, it is but a day's journey, and I can return to my love." And he laughed, and he stood up in the shallow water and strode towards the shore. And when he'd reached the dry shore, he laughed again, held out his arms to his soul, and his soul gave a great cry of joy and ran to meet him, and entered into him. And the young fisherman saw stretched before him upon the sand that shadow of the body that is the body of the soul. And his soul said to him, his soul said to him, "Let us not tarry, but get hence at once, for the sea gods are jealous and have monsters that do their bidding." And so they made haste, and all that night they journeyed beneath the moon, and all the next day they journeyed beneath the sun. And on the evening of the day they came to a city. And the young fisherman said to his soul, "Is this the city in which she dances, of whom thou didst speak to me?" And his soul answered him, "It is not." He went French all of a sudden. It's hard to jump into South African. "It is not this city, but another. Nevertheless, let us enter in." So they entered in and passed through the streets. I have a feeling nobody's actually listening to this story anymore. Because you're all too focused on the hypes and the trophies and the ill-gotten trophies that you've stolen without need, without warrant. The raids and the swords and the halalalalalalas. Cave Skunk's trying to listen. There's a story? What? Assiduously ignoring the chat. Alan's listening. Alright. He's listening to the chat. Alright. Otterbot's reading at least. Okay, Otterbot's listening. Okay. "It is not this city but another. Nevertheless, let's enter in." So they entered in and passed through the streets. And as they passed through the streets of the jewellers, the young fisherman saw a fair silver cup set forth in a booth. And his soul said to him, "Take that silver cup and hide it." So he took the cup and hid it in the fold of his tunic, and they went hurriedly out of the city. And after that they had gone a league. After that they had gone a league from the city. The young fisherman frowned and flung the cup away, and said to his soul, "Why didst thou tell me to take this cup and hide it? For it was an evil thing to do." But his soul answered him, "Be at peace, be at peace." And on the evening of the second day they came to a city. And the young fisherman said to his soul, "Is this the city in which she dances, of whom thou didst speak?" And his soul answered him, "It is not." Why do I go French? Said African. "It is not this city, but another. Nevertheless, let us enter in." So they entered in and passed through the streets. And as they passed through the street of the sellers and sandals, the young fisherman saw a child standing by a jar of water. And his soul said to him, "Smite that child." So he smote the child till it wept. And when he'd done this, they went hurriedly out of the city. And after they'd gone a league from the city, the young fisherman grew wroth, and said to his soul, "Why didst thou tell me to smite the child? For it was an evil thing to do." But his soul answered him, "Be at peace, be at peace." And on the evening of the third day they came to a city. And the young fisherman said to his soul, any guesses? Anybody want to, hazard a guess what he might say to him 3 times in a row? He said to him, "Is this the city in which she dances, of whom thou didst speak to me?" And his soul answered him, in South African, "It may be that it is in this city, therefore let us enter in." So they entered in and passed through the streets, but nowhere could the young fisherman find the river or the inn that stood by its side. And the people of the city looked curiously at him. And he grew afraid and said to the soul, "Let us go hence, for she who dances with white feet is not here." But his soul answered, "Nay, but let us tarry, for the night is dark, and there will be robbers on the way." So he sat him down in the marketplace and rested, and after a time there went by a hooded merchant who had a cloak of cloth of Tartary, and bore a lantern of pierced horn at the end of a jointed reed. I have a feeling the witch isn't going to come back into this story. The merchant said to him, no, merchant, different guy. Mate, he's going to be a bit of a chav. He's going to be a chav, but without being scout. He's just going to be a chav. Mate, in me burbary, I look dead cool in me burbary. The merchant said to him, "Why dost thou sit in the marketplace, seeing that these booths are closed and the bales corded?" And the young fisherman answered him, "I can find no inn in the city, nor have I any kinsman who might give me shelter." "Are we not all kinsmen?" said the merchant, "and did not one God make us? Therefore come with me, for I've got a guest chamber." So the young fisherman rose up and followed the merchant to his house. And when he'd passed through a garden of pomegranates and entered into the house, the merchant brought him rose water in a copper dish, that he might wash his hands, and ripe melons that he might quench his thirst, and set a bowl of rice and a piece of roasted kid before him. And after that he had finished, the merchant led him to the guest chamber, and bade him sleep and be at rest. And the young fisherman gave him thanks, and kissed the ring that was on his hand, and flung himself down on the carpets of dyed goat's hair. And when he'd covered himself with a covering of black lamb's wool, he fell asleep. And 3 hours before dawn, and while it was still night, his soul waked and said to him, "Rise up, and go to the room of the merchant, even to the room in which he sleepeth, and slay him, and take from him his gold, for we have need of it." And the young fisherman rose up and crept towards the room of the merchant. And over the feet of the merchant there was lying a curved sword, and a tray by the side of the merchant held 9 purses of gold. And he reached out his hand, and he touched the sword. And when he touched it, the merchant started and awoke, and leaping up, seized himself the sword, and cried to the young fisherman, "Dost thou return evil for good, and pay me with the shedding of blood for the kindness I've shown thee?" And the soul said to the young fisherman, "Strike him!" And he struck him so that he swooned. And then he seized the 9 purses of gold, and fled hastily through the garden of pomegranates, and set his face to the star that is the star of morning. And when they'd gone a league from the city, the young fisherman beat his breast, and said to his soul, "Why didst thou bid me slay the merchant, and take his gold? Surely thou art evil." But his soul answered him, "Be at peace, be at peace." "Nay," cried the young fisherman, "I may not be at peace, for all that thou hast made me do I hate. Thee also I hate, and I bid thee tell me wherefore thou hast wronged me in this wise. Wherefore thou hast wrought me in this wise." And his soul answered him, "When thou didst send me forth into the world, thou gavest me no heart, so I learned to do all these things, and love them." "What sayest thou?" murmured the young fisherman. "Thou knowest," answered his soul. "Thou knowest it well. Hast thou forgotten that thou gavest me no heart? I trow not. And so trouble not thyself nor me, but be at peace, for there is no pain that thou shalt not give away, nor any pleasure that thou shalt not receive." And when the young fisherman heard these words, he trembled, and said to his soul, "Nay, but thou art evil, and hast made me forget my love, and hast tempted me with temptations, and hast set my feet in the way of sins." And his soul answered him, "Thou hast not forgotten that when thou didst send me forth into the world, thou gavest me no heart. Come, let us go to another city, and make merry, for we have 9 purses of gold." But the young fisherman took the 9 purses of gold, and flung them down, and trampled on them, because everybody knows if you trample gold, it's worthless. "Nay," he cried, "but I will have naught to do with thee, nor I will journey with thee anywhere. But even as I sent thee away before, I will send thee away now, for thou hast wrought me no good." And he turned his back to the moon, and with the little knife that had the handle of green viper's skin, he strove to cut the feet from the shadow of the body, which is the body of the soul. Yet his soul stirred not from him, nor paid heed to his command, but said to him, "The spell that thou witch told thee avails thee no more, for I may not leave thee, nor mayest thou drive me forth. Once in his life may a man send his soul away, but he who receiveth back his soul must keep it with him forever, and this is his punishment and his reward." 5 streams of this story, and they're not even going to have a child, are they? I don't even think she's going to come back into the story at this stage, Nicole. Don't worry, I've got it sitting in front of me that I've got to redeem that accent. I'm not going to forget it. And the young fisherman grew pale, and clenched his hands, and cried, "She was a false witch, in that she told me not that." "Nay," answered his soul, "but she was true to him she worships, and whose servant she will be ever." And when the young fisherman knew that he could no longer get rid of his soul, and that it was an evil soul, and would abide with him always, he fell upon the ground, weeping bitterly. We're getting closer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pages left. 5 pages. We can do it. We can do it. 10:25. Yeah, I've got time. hydrate. Thank you. 5 pages till the inevitable bad ending. What do you reckon? What do you reckon it's going to be? It's already pretty tragic that he's taken his soul back into himself, not knowing that it would be the last time. So what's he going to do now with 5 pages left? He's going to go find the. I reckon that Spanish guy wouldn't have been introduced unless he comes back into it. So he's going to go find the witch. He's going to go find the witch, and she's going to be dancing with that Spanish guy again. And he's going to say, "Hey, Spanish guy, you must be more powerful than the witches because they all work for you. So you can surely get rid of my soul." And then what's going to happen? You can get rid of my soul, and then he says, I can get rid of your soul, but he tricks him. He says, yes, I can, if you must do this. And then he tricks him like there's a loophole in his wording. And so he gets rid of his soul, but he also dies or something. I reckon it's gonna be tragic ending where he goes to bargain with the witches and the Spanish dude, and he gets tricked into becoming a witch or dying or something. It'll just be all new weird characters and descriptions. They'll double cross him. He better die. Alright. When it was day, the young fisherman rose up and said to his soul, I will bind my hands that I may not do thy bidding, and I will close my lips that I may not speak thy words. I will return to the place where she whom I love has her dwelling. Even to the sea will I return, and to the little bay where she is wont to sing. I will call to her and tell her the evil I have done, and the evil thou hast wrought on me. And his soul tempted him and said, Who is thy love that thou shouldst return to her? The world has many fairer than she is. There are the dancing girls of Samaris, who dance in the manner of all kinds of birds and beasts. Their feet are painted with henna, and their hands they have little copper bells. They laugh while they dance. They laugh while they dance, and their laughter is as clear as the laughter of water. Come with me, and I will show them to thee. For what is this trouble of thine about the things of sin? Is that which is pleasant to eat not made for the eater? Is there poison in that which is sweet to drink? Trouble not thyself, but come with me to another city. There is a little city hard by, which there is a garden of tulip trees, and there dwell in this comely garden white peacocks and peacocks that have blue breasts. Their tails, when they spread them to the sun, are like discs of ivory, and like gilt discs. And she who feeds them dances for pleasure, and sometimes she dances on her hands, at the other times she dances with her feet. Her eyes are coloured with stibium, and her nostrils are shaped like the wings of a swallow. Yeah, I should have known better, actually. It's just going to be 5 pages of him describing other women, isn't it? In great, unbelievable detail. Her eyes are coloured with stibium, and nostrils are shaped like the wings of a swallow. From a hook in one of her nostrils hangs a flower that is carved out of a pearl. She laughs while she dances, and the silver rings that are about her ankles tinkle like bells of silver. And so trouble not thyself any more, but come with me to the city. But the young fisherman answered not his soul, but closed his lips with the seal of silence, and with a tight cord bound his hands, and journeyed back from the place from which he had come, even to the little bay where his love had been wont to sing. And ever did his soul tempt him by the way, but he made it no answer. Nor would he do any of the wickedness that it sought to make him do. So great was the power of the love that was within him. And when he had reached the shore of the sea, he loosed the cord from his hands, and took the seal of silence from his lips, and called to the little mermaid. But she came not to his call, though he called to her all day long and besought her. And his soul mocked him, saying, His soul mocked him and said, Surely thou hast but little joy out of thy love. Thou art as one who in time of death pours water into a broken vessel. Thou givest away what thou hast, and naught is given to thee in return. It were better for thee to come with me, for I know where the valley of pleasure lies, and what things are wrought there. But the young fisherman answered not his soul, but in a cleft of the rock he built himself a house of wattles, and abode there for the space of a year. And every morning he called to the mermaid, and every noon he called to her again, and at night time he spake her name. Yet never did she rise out of the sea to meet him, nor in any place of the sea could he find her. "'Cause she's off collecting things, mate. She's just too busy, nicking car stereos." Not in any place of the sea could he find her, though he sought for her in the caves and in the green water, and in the pools of the tide, and in the wells that are at the bottom of the deep. And ever did his soul tempt him with evil, and whisper of terrible things. "Kill yourself, 12 dozen." Yet did it not prevail against him. So great was the power of his love. And after the year was over, the soul thought within himself, "I have tempted my master with evil, and his love is stronger than I am. I will tempt him now with good, and it may be that he will come to me." I did see Kay's picture with the Burberry cap. It was brilliant. "Yeah, you want a car stereo, mate?" Starting to think he hallucinated the mermaid, maybe, for two long years underwater. Tempted him with evil, so I'll tempt him with good. So he spake to the young fisherman and said, "I have told thee of the joy of the world, and thou hast turned a deaf ear to me. Suffer me now to tell thee the world's pain, and it may be that thou wilt hearken. For of a truth pain is the lord of this world, nor is there anyone who escapes from its net. There will be some who lack raiment, and some who lack bread. There will be widows who sit in purple, and widows who sit in rags. To and fro over the fens go the lepers, and they are cruel to each other. The beggars go up and down on the highways, and their wallets are empty. Through the streets of the cities walk famine, and the plague sits at their gates. Come, let us go forth and mend these things, and make them not be. Wherefore shouldst thou tarry here, calling to thy love, seeing that she comes not to thy call? And what is love, that thou shouldst set this high store upon it?" But the young fisherman answered it not, so great was the power of his love. And every morning he called to the mermaid, and every noon he called to her again, and at night time he spake her name. Yet never did she rise out of the sea to meet him, nor in any place of the sea could he find her, though he sought for her in the rivers of the sea and in the valleys that are under the waves. He just literally copy-pastes sections. In the sea that makes the night purple, and in the sea that the dawn leaves grey. And after the second year was over, the soul said to the young fisherman at night time, as he sat in the wattled house alone, "Lo, now have I tempted thee with evil, and I have tempted thee with good, and thy love is stronger than I am. Wherefore will I tempt thee no longer, but I pray thee to suffer me to enter thy heart, that I may be one with thee, even as before." "Surely thou mayest enter," said the young fisherman, "for in the days when no heart thou didst go. For in the days when with no heart thou didst go through the world, thou must have much suffered." "Alas," cried the soul, "I can find no place of entrance. So compassed about with love is the heart of... Wait. Oh, my bad. "Alas," cried the soul, "I can find no place of entrance, so compassed about with love is this heart of thine." Nicole, I'd have given up a long time ago. Yeah, 2 years standing on the ocean, when he only spent 2 years with her to begin with. He's starting to get to the point where he's about to have pined for her longer than he was ever with her in the first place. Yet I would that I could help thee," said the young fisherman. And as he spake, there came a great cry of mourning from the sea, even the cry that men hear when one of the sea folk is dead. And the young fisherman leapt up and left his wattled house, and he ran down to the shore. And the black waves came hurrying to the shore, bearing with them a burden that was whiter than silver. White as the surf it was, and like a flower it tossed on the waves. And the surf took it from the waves, and the foam took it from the surf, and the shore received it. And lying at his feet, the young fisherman saw the body of Michael Jackson. It's a strange story for Oscar Wilde to have written, but I mean, it's written right there. He saw the body of the little mermaid. Dead at his feet she was lying. Weeping as one smitten with pain, he flung himself down beside it, and he kissed the cold red of the mouth, and toyed with the wet amber of the hair. He flung himself down beside it on the sand, weeping as one trembling with joy, and in his brown arms he held it to his breast.
Cold were the lips, yet he kissed them. Salt was the cunny of the hair, yet he tasted it with a bitter joy. He kissed the closed eyelids, and the wild spray that lay upon their cups was less salt than his tears. And to the dead thing he made confession. Into his shells of its ears he poured the harsh wine of his tale. He put the little hands round his neck, and with his fingers he touched the thin reed of the throat. Bitter, bitter was his joy, and full of strange gladness was his pain. The black sea came nearer, and the white foam moaned like a leper. With white claws of foam the sea grabbed at the shore. From the palace of the Sea King came the cry of morning again, and far out upon the sea the great Tritons blew hoarsely upon their horns. "Flee away," said his soul, "for ever doth the sea come higher, and if thou tarriest it will slay thee. Flee away, for I am afraid, seeing that thy heart is closed against me by reason of the greatness of thy love. Flee away to a place of safety. Surely thou wilt not send me without a heart into another world." The young fisherman listened not to his soul, but called on the little mermaid and said, "Love is better than wisdom, and more precious than riches, and fairer than the feet at the doors of men. The fires cannot destroy it, nor can the waters quench it. I called on thee at dawn, and thou didst come to my call. The moon heard thy name, yet hadst thou no heed of me, for evilly I had left thee, and to my own hurt had I wandered away. Yet ever did thy love abide with me, and ever was it strong. Nor did aught prevail against it, though I have looked upon evil and looked upon good. And now that thou art dead, surely I will die with thee also." And his soul besought him to depart, but he would not, so great was his love. And the sea came nearer and sought to cover him with its waves. And when he knew that it was the end at hand, he kissed with mad lips the cold lips of the mermaid, and the heart that was within him broke. And as though the fullness of his love and his heart did break, the soul found an entrance and entered in, and it was one with him even as before, and the sea covered the young fisherman with its waves. It sounds like the end of the story, but it's not. And in the morning the priest went forth to bless the sea, for it had been troubled. And with him went the monks and the musicians and the candle-bearers and the swingers of censers and a great company. And when the priest reached the shore, he saw that the young fisherman lying drowned in the surf, and clasped in his arms was the body of the little mermaid. And he drew back, frowning, and having made the sign of the cross, he cried aloud and said, in a Texan voice, "Yeehaw, Houston, Texas. God, oh my God, like, goodness. I say. He was but he was also like an old man, wasn't he? He was like an old rancher man. Gotta try and remember. Thank you very much, J.
Damn
Peel.
ninjas cutting onions.
damn onion ninjas. Thank you for the $30 so I can buy myself some protection against those ninjas. Getting me up to the donation goal of $100. Can I get some haps in the chat for J. Peel? Very appreciative of your support. This is my plantation owner. I can't remember what he sounded like. It was hoarse. It was a hoarse old man voice. Oh, that's right. He had a jutting chin. I gave him this kind of thing, but it was still a Texas guy. But he just had this sort of a voice where like this. That's right. There you go. Miss Bowman says this is it. The priest went forth and he cried aloud, and he said, "I will not bless the sea, nor anything that's in it. Accursed be the sea folk, and accursed be all who traffic with them. And as for him who for love's sake forsook God, and so lieth here with his leman slain by God's judgment, take up his body and the body of his leman, and bury them in the corner of the field of the fullers, and set no mark above them, nor sign of any kind, nor none that thou may knowst the place of their resting. For accursed were they in their lives, and accursed shall be they in their deaths also." And the people did as he commanded them, and in the corner of the field of the fullers, where no sweet herbs grew, they dug a deep pit, and laid the dead things within it. Dead things. Someone's requesting the last of my refreshment. Laid the dead things within it. And when the 3rd year was over, and on a day that was a holy day, the priest went up to the chapel, that he might show the people the wounds of the Lord, and speak to them about the wrath of God. And when he had robed himself with his robes, and had entered in and bowed himself before the altar, he saw that the altar was covered with strange flowers that had never been seen before. Strange were they to look at, and of curious beauty. And their beauty troubled him, and their odour was sweet in his nostrils. And he felt glad, and understood not why he was glad. And after that he had opened the tabernacle, and incensed the monstrance that was in it, and shown into the fair wafer to the people, and hid it again behind the veil of veils, he began to speak up to the people, desiring to speak to them to the wrath of God. But the beauty of the white flowers troubled him, and their odour was sweet in his nostrils. And there came another word unto his lips. And he spake not the wrath of God, but of God whose name is love. And why so he spake he knew not. And when he finished his word, the people wept, and the priest went back to the sacristy, and his eyes were full of tears. And the deacons came in and began to unrobe him, and took from him the alb and the girdle, the maniple and the stole. And he stood as one in a dream. And after that they had unrobed him, he looked at them and said, What are the flowers that stand on the altar, and whence do they come? And they answered him,
What flowers we cannot tell, but they come from the corner of the fuller's field.
And the priest trembled and returned to his own house and prayed. And in the morning, while it was still dawn, he went forth with the monks and the musicians, and the candle-bearers, and the swingers of censers, and a great company, and came to the shore of the sea, and blessed the sea, and all the wild things that are in it. The fawns also he blessed, and the little things that dance in the woodland, and the bright-eyed things that peer through the leaves. All the things in God's world he blessed, and the people were filled with joy and wonder. Yet never again in the corner of Fuller's field grew flowers of any kind, but the field remained barren even as before. Nor came the sea folk into the bay as they had been wont to do, for they went to another part of the sea.